17-year-old Maya Washington stood quietly in her simple black dress as handcuffs clicked around her wrists on what should have been the proudest day of her life. The gymnasium fell silent as classmates and families watched in shock while two police officers escorted the honor student away from her own graduation ceremony. Whispers rippled through the crowd about the quiet girl who kept to herself, wore thrift store clothes, and never caused trouble. They had no idea who she really was. What the principal said next would not only free Maya from those handcuffs, but expose a truth so extraordinary that it would change everything anyone thought they knew about judging others by appearance. Sometimes, the most unassuming person holds the most remarkable secrets. Before I continue the story, please subscribe. I need to reach 1,000 subscribers so I can keep bringing you stories like this every day. It's just one click for you, but it means a lot to me. Thank you. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Lincoln High School as Maya Washington adjusted the simple black dress her grandmother had sewn for this special day. While her classmates arrived in designer gowns and expensive suits, Maya's outfit cost less than $20 to make. But it fit her perfectly and made her feel confident. She had always preferred simplicity over flash, substance over style. Her worn canvas sneakers squeaked softly against the polished gymnasium floor as she found her assigned seat in the front row, reserved for the top students in the graduating class. Maya's guidance counselor, Mrs. Rodriguez, smiled warmly as she approached. "Ready for the big day, Maya? Your speech is going to inspire everyone." Maya nodded quietly, clutching the folded paper containing her valedictorian address. She had spent weeks crafting words that would encourage her fellow graduates to pursue their dreams regardless of their circumstances. As the daughter of a single mother who worked double shifts as a hospital cleaner, Maya understood struggle intimately. The gymnasium gradually filled with proud families, faculty members, and school board officials. Maya noticed how some parents pointed in her direction, whispering among themselves. She had grown accustomed to the stares and assumptions that came with her simple appearance and quiet demeanor. Most people at Lincoln High barely knew her name, despite her perfect attendance record and 4.0 grade point average. She preferred it that way, finding peace in her books and studies while others sought attention through social media and popularity contests. Principal Davidson approached the microphone to begin the ceremony, his voice echoing through the packed gymnasium. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lincoln High School's graduation ceremony. Today we celebrate not just academic achievement, but the character and determination that will carry these young people into their bright futures." Maya felt her heart swell with pride as she thought about her acceptance letter to Harvard University, hidden safely in her bedroom drawer. The full scholarship would allow her to pursue her dream of becoming a civil rights attorney, following in the footsteps of her heroes who fought for justice and equality. As the ceremony began with the presentation of colors and the national anthem, Maya reflected on her 4 years at Lincoln High. She had faced countless challenges, from teachers who underestimated her abilities to classmates who excluded her from social circles. But she had persevered through determination, hard work, and the unwavering support of her mother and grandmother. Her academic achievements spoke for themselves, even if few people bothered to listen. Today was supposed to be her moment of recognition, the culmination of years of sacrifice and dedication. She had no idea that in just a few short minutes, everything would change in the most unexpected and devastating way possible. 20 minutes into the graduation ceremony, as Principal Davidson was announcing academic honors, a commotion near the gymnasium entrance caught everyone's attention. 2 police officers in full uniform strode purposefully down the center aisle, their heavy boots echoing ominously in the suddenly quiet space. Officer Bradley, a tall man with graying temples and a stern expression, led the way while his younger partner, Officer Martinez, followed closely behind with handcuffs visible on his belt. Maya felt her stomach drop as she noticed the officers scanning the front rows where the honor students Saturday. Around her, classmates began whispering nervously, while parents craned their necks to see what was happening. The ceremonial atmosphere evaporated, replaced by tension and confusion. Principal Davidson paused mid-sentence, his voice trailing off as he watched the officers approach the stage area. "Excuse me," Officer Bradley announced loudly, his voice carrying across the silent gymnasium. "We're looking for Maya Washington, We have a warrant for her arrest." The words hit like a thunderbolt, causing gasps and shocked murmurs throughout the crowd. Maya felt the blood drain from her face as hundreds of eyes turned toward her. Her hands began trembling as she clutched her graduation program, unable to comprehend what she was hearing. Mrs. Rodriguez immediately stepped forward, her protective instincts kicking in. "Officers, there must be some mistake. Maya is our valedictorian. She's never been in any trouble." But Officer Bradley dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand. "Ma'am, please step aside. We have our orders." His tone was cold and professional, leaving no room for discussion or explanation. Maya slowly stood from her chair, her legs feeling weak beneath her. She had never so much as received a detention in her entire academic career, let alone done anything that would warrant police involvement. The simple black dress that had made her feel confident just moments earlier now felt like a spotlight, marking her as different and somehow guilty in the eyes of the crowd. She could hear her mother's voice calling her name from the family section, filled with panic and disbelief. "Maya Washington, you're under arrest for theft and vandalism," Officer Bradley announced as he approached her seat. The charges hung in the air like a poison cloud, infecting everything Maya had worked so hard to achieve. Her classmates stared in shock, their faces a mixture of confusion and judgment. Some pulled out their phones to record the unprecedented scene, already imagining the social media posts they would create about the honor student's dramatic downfall. As Officer Martinez stepped forward with the handcuffs, Maya found her voice. "There has to be a mistake," she said quietly, her dignity intact despite the humiliation surrounding her. "I haven't done anything wrong." But her words seemed to disappear into the chaos of the moment, overwhelmed by the whispers, gasps, and clicking of phone cameras, capturing her worst nightmare in high definition. The metal handcuffs felt cold and foreign against Maya's wrists as Officer Martinez secured them behind her back. The clicking sound seemed to echo endlessly in the packed gymnasium, punctuating the stunned silence that had fallen over the graduation ceremony. Maya held her head high despite the humiliation, drawing on the inner strength her grandmother had taught her to maintain in difficult moments. She would not give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her break down in public. "This is absolutely ridiculous," called out Dr. Patricia Williams, the school's assistant principal, as she hurried toward the scene. "Maya Washington is one of our finest students. She's never even had a tardy mark, let alone committed any crimes." Her voice carried the authority of someone who had worked in education for over 20 years and knew her students well. But Officer Bradley barely glanced in her direction, his focus remaining fixed on the procedure at hand. The crowd's reaction was immediate and divided. Some families looked on in shock and sympathy, recognizing the injustice unfolding before their eyes. Others whispered among themselves, making assumptions based on appearance and circumstance. Maya could hear fragments of conversations floating through the air. "Always the quiet ones you have to watch," and "probably been planning this for months, and her family probably put her up to it." Maya's mother, Patricia Washington, pushed through the crowd of seated families, her hospital cleaning uniform still visible beneath her dress jacket. She had taken time off from her double shift to attend her daughter's graduation, never imagining she would witness her child's arrest instead of her academic triumph. "Maya, baby? What's happening?" she called out, her voice cracking with emotion and disbelief. Principal Davidson stepped down from the podium, his face grave with concern. He had known Maya for 4 years and had personally recommended her for numerous academic awards and scholarship opportunities. "Officers, I need to understand what's happening here. Maya Washington is our valedictorian. She's scheduled to deliver the graduation speech in just a few minutes. Surely there's been some kind of misunderstanding." Officer Bradley consulted his paperwork before responding. "We have a warrant issued yesterday evening for theft of school property valued at over $2,000, plus vandalism charges for damage to the computer lab." The complainant specifically named Maya Washington as the perpetrator. His words carried the weight of official documentation, even as they contradicted everything Maya's teachers and classmates knew about her character. As the officers began to escort Maya toward the exit, her grandmother rose slowly from her seat in the family section. At 82 years old, Rosa Washington had seen enough injustice in her lifetime to recognize it immediately. Her voice, though quiet, carried across the gymnasium with unmistakable authority. "That child has never stolen so much as a pencil in her entire life. Y'all making a terrible mistake, and the truth will come out." Her words provided a small comfort to Maya as she was led away from everything she had worked so hard to achieve. The gymnasium doors closed behind Maya with a finality that seemed to seal her fate, leaving behind the shocked whispers and clicking cameras of her classmates and their families. As the officers led her through the school hallway toward the exit, Maya caught glimpses of the academic achievement displays that lined the walls. Her own photograph smiled back at her from the Student of the Month showcase, a cruel reminder of how quickly everything had changed. Officer Martinez, the younger of the two policemen, seemed uncomfortable with the situation as they walked. He had noticed Maya's genuine shock and confusion, and something about her quiet dignity made him question the charges they were supposed to enforce. "Look, kid," he said quietly, "if you cooperate and tell us where you put the stolen equipment, this might go easier for you." Maya turned to look at him with eyes that held no guilt, only bewilderment and hurt. "I don't know what equipment you're talking about," Maya replied softly, her voice steady despite the chaos of emotions swirling inside her. "I've never stolen anything in my life. I don't even know how to access the computer lab after hours. Someone has made a terrible mistake." Her words carried the ring of truth, but Officer Bradley remained unmoved by her protests. Back in the gymnasium, the graduation ceremony had ground to an awkward halt. Principal Davidson struggled to restore order as families demanded answers and students expressed their shock through social media posts that were already going viral. The hashtag number Justice for Maya began trending within minutes as classmates who barely knew her personally rallied around the obvious injustice of the situation. Mrs. Rodriguez gathered Maya's personal belongings from her chair, including the folded valedictorian speech that would now never be delivered. As she read the opening lines about overcoming adversity and believing in yourself despite the odds, tears filled her eyes. Maya had written those words, not knowing how prophetic they would become, or how much she would need that inner strength in the hours ahead. The school's head of security, Mr. Thompson, approached Principal Davidson with a troubled expression. As a former police detective, he understood the serious nature of the charges, but also recognized the inconsistencies in the situation. "Principal Davidson, something doesn't add up here. The computer lab break-in happened Tuesday night, according to the report, but Maya was at the Honor Society meeting until 9 p.m. that evening. I have the sign-in sheets to prove it." Meanwhile, Maya's family waited anxiously in the parking lot, watching as their beloved daughter and granddaughter was placed in the back of a police cruiser. Patricia Washington held her own mother's hand tightly, both women drawing strength from their shared faith and the absolute certainty of Maya's innocence. They had raised this girl with strong values and unwavering principles, and they knew beyond any doubt that she was incapable of the crimes she was accused of committing. The police station's holding area felt like a world away from the graduation ceremony Maya should have been attending. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows on the concrete walls as she sat on a metal bench, still wearing her simple black dress that now felt like a costume from another life. The handcuffs had been removed, but the invisible weight of the false accusations pressed down on her shoulders like a physical burden. Detective Sarah Chen, a 20-year veteran of the force, reviewed the case file with growing skepticism. The theft report had been filed by someone claiming to witness Maya removing expensive computer equipment from the school's technology lab, but the details seemed vague and inconsistent. The alleged witness described seeing the crime occur at 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Yet Maya's student records showed perfect attendance and no history of disciplinary issues. "Maya Washington," Detective Chen called as she approached the holding area. "I need to ask you some questions about Tuesday night. Can you walk me through your evening?" Maya looked up with tired but hopeful eyes, grateful to finally have someone willing to listen to her side of the story. She explained her Honor Society meeting, the study session that followed, and her early bedtime to prepare for a chemistry exam the next morning. Back at Lincoln High School, the graduation ceremony had resumed with a somber tone that contrasted sharply with the earlier celebration. Principal Davidson addressed the crowd, his voice heavy with emotion. "Ladies and gentlemen, We will continue our ceremony while this matter is investigated thoroughly. I want everyone to remember that in our country, people are innocent until proven guilty. And I have complete faith that the truth will emerge. Maya's best friend, Jennifer Kim, stood up from her seat in the graduate section. Despite her naturally shy personality, she couldn't remain silent while her friend's reputation was being destroyed. Principal Davidson, Maya was with me Tuesday night until almost 10 p.m. We were working on our joint science project in the library. She couldn't have been anywhere near the computer lab. Her voice shook with nervousness, but her conviction was unmistakable. The revelation caused a stir throughout the gymnasium as other students began coming forward with similar information. Marcus Johnson, the president of the Honor Society, confirmed that Maya had attended the entire meeting and had even stayed late to help plan their final fundraiser. Lisa Patterson, a fellow valedictorian candidate, remembered seeing Maya leave the school building with Jennifer around 9:45 p.m. Detective Chen made careful notes as Maya provided names and details that could be verified. The teenager's story was consistent and specific, filled with the kind of mundane details that indicated truthfulness rather than fabrication. She described the exact topics covered in the Honor Society meeting, the specific pages they had reviewed in their study session, and even the conversation she had with the security guard who locked up the building after they left. "Maya, I'm going to be honest with you," Detective Chen said gently. "This case has some serious inconsistencies, and I'm going to investigate every detail thoroughly." As Detective Chen continued her investigation, she discovered that the anonymous tip that led to Maya's arrest had come through a phone call made from a payphone outside a convenience store 3 blocks from the school. The caller claimed to have witnessed Maya breaking into the computer lab, but refused to provide their name or contact information. The vague description they gave of the alleged crime scene didn't match the actual layout of the school's technology center. Meanwhile, at the police station, Maya's mother arrived with their family attorney, David Martinez, who had rushed over as soon as he received Patricia's frantic phone call. Mr. Martinez had known the Washington family for years and had helped them navigate various legal challenges, including Maya's scholarship applications and college paperwork. He was both shocked and outraged by the charges against his young client. "This is absolutely preposterous," Mr. Martinez declared as he reviewed the arrest warrant. "Maya Washington has maintained a 4.0 grade average while working part-time to help support her family. She's been accepted to Harvard University with a full scholarship. The idea that she would risk everything by stealing computer equipment is not just unlikely, it's impossible for anyone who knows her character." Detective Chen met with Mr. Martinez and Maya's mother to discuss the inconsistencies she had discovered. The timeline of the alleged crime didn't match Maya's documented whereabouts, and the physical evidence from the computer lab break-in told a different story than the anonymous accusation. Someone had indeed broken into the lab, but the method of entry required advanced knowledge of the school's security system and maintenance codes. Back at the graduation ceremony, word had spread quickly through social media about the inconsistencies in Maya's case. Students who had never spoken to her personally began sharing their observations about her character and work ethic. Teachers posted testimonials about her integrity and dedication to her studies. The hashtag #JusticeForMaya continued to gain momentum as the community rallied around the obvious miscarriage of justice. Mrs. Rodriguez gathered a group of Maya's teachers to provide sworn statements about her whereabouts on Tuesday evening. Peterson, the chemistry teacher, remembered Maya staying after class to ask questions about the upcoming exam. Miss Johnson from the library confirmed that Maya and Jennifer had used the study rooms until closing time. The school's own security footage would prove crucial in establishing Maya's innocence. Principal Davidson made the difficult decision to postpone the remainder of the graduation ceremony until Maya's situation could be resolved. "This young woman has earned the right to deliver her valedictorian speech," he announced to the gathered crowd. "We will not proceed without her, because justice and truth matter more than schedule and tradition." His words drew applause from many families who had been moved by the obvious injustice of the situation. As the afternoon wore on, it became increasingly clear that Maya Washington was the victim of a deliberate setup. and Detective Chen was determined to uncover who was really responsible for the computer lab theft. Detective Chen's investigation took a dramatic turn when she reviewed the school's security footage from Tuesday night. The cameras clearly showed Maya leaving the building at 9:47 p.m. with Jennifer Kim and 3 other Honor Society members, nearly 2 hours before the alleged crime occurred. More importantly, the footage revealed someone else entering the computer lab through a maintenance entrance at 11:55 p.m. using what appeared to be an official access key. The figure on the security tape was tall and moved with familiarity through the hallways, suggesting someone with extensive knowledge of the school layout. Detective Chen enhanced the images and noticed distinctive details about the person's clothing and gait that would prove crucial to identifying the real culprit. The theft had been carefully planned and executed by someone who knew exactly what they were looking for and how to access it. At the police station, Maya sat quietly in the interview room with her attorney, maintaining her composure despite the emotional toll of the false accusations. Mr. Martinez had arranged for character witnesses to provide statements, including her grandmother's longtime friend, Judge Evelyn Roberts, who had known Maya since childhood and was prepared to vouch for her integrity under oath. "Maya, I need you to think carefully," Detective Chen said as she returned with new information. "Is there anyone at school who might have a reason to frame you for this crime? Anyone who might feel threatened by your academic success or upcoming speech?" Maya considered the question thoughtfully, her mind racing through interactions with classmates and teachers over the past several months. "There is one person," Maya said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Brandon Mitchell. He's been angry ever since he found out I was chosen as valedictorian instead of him. He's made several comments about how it wasn't fair, and he's been telling people that I don't deserve the recognition because of my background." Her revelation opened up a new avenue of investigation that would prove to be the key to solving the case. Brandon Mitchell was the son of a wealthy local businessman and had expected to be named valedictorian based on his family's social standing and financial contributions to the school. When Maya's superior grades and test scores earned her the honor instead, he had become increasingly resentful and bitter. Several classmates had witnessed his angry outbursts about the unfairness of the selection process. Detective Chen immediately began investigating Brandon's whereabouts on Tuesday night and discovered that his alibi was much less solid than Maya's. His parents claimed he had been home studying, but cell phone records would later reveal that he had left his house at 11:15 p.m. and returned after 1 a.m. The pieces of the puzzle were finally beginning to fall into place. Meanwhile, at Lincoln High School, Principal Davidson was preparing to make an announcement that would vindicate Maya and expose the truth behind her false arrest. The real perpetrator's identity was about to be revealed, and justice would finally be served. The breakthrough in Maya's case came when Detective Chen discovered that Brandon Mitchell had access to the school's maintenance keys through his after-school job with the custodial staff. His supervisor confirmed that Brandon had requested to work late on Tuesday night, claiming he needed to complete a special cleaning project in the computer lab. The job gave him intimate knowledge of the security system and the locations of the most valuable equipment. When Detective Chen interviewed Brandon's co-workers, she learned that he had been asking suspicious questions about the computer lab's inventory and had shown unusual interest in the school's camera system. One custodian remembered Brandon asking specifically about blind spots in the security coverage and the timing of the automated backup procedures. These details painted a clear picture of premeditation and planning. At the police station, Maya's situation was rapidly changing as the evidence mounted in her favor. Detective Chen returned to the interview room with a smile on her face, the first good news Maya had received since her arrest. "Maya, I have some important updates for you. The security footage completely corroborates your alibi, and we've identified the real perpetrator of this crime." Mr. Martinez felt a wave of relief wash over him as Detective Chen explained the evidence they had uncovered. "This was a deliberate attempt to frame my client," he said, his voice filled with righteous indignation. "Maya has been the victim of a malicious scheme designed to destroy her reputation and derail her future prospects. We will be pursuing all available legal remedies against the person responsible." Back at Lincoln High School, Principal Davidson had called an emergency assembly for all students and families who were still on campus following the disrupted graduation ceremony. The gymnasium buzzed with anticipation as people wondered what new developments had occurred in Maya's case. Teachers and staff members gathered on the stage, their faces reflecting a mixture of concern and hope. "Ladies and gentlemen," Principal Davidson began, his voice carrying across the packed gymnasium, "I have significant updates regarding Maya Washington's situation. Thanks to the thorough investigation by Detective Chen and the Lincoln Police Department, we now know that Maya is completely innocent of all charges against her." The announcement was met with applause and cheers from the crowd, particularly from Maya's fellow students who had never believed the accusations. Principal Davidson continued, "Furthermore, we have identified the real perpetrator of the computer lab theft, and that person is currently being taken into custody. Maya Washington has been completely exonerated, and she will be released from police custody immediately so that she can return to campus to deliver her valedictorian speech as originally planned." The gymnasium erupted in celebration as Maya's family embraced each other with tears of joy and relief. Mrs. Rodriguez wiped away tears as she thought about the injustice Maya had endured and the strength she had shown throughout the ordeal. The truth had finally emerged, but Maya's moment of vindication was still to come. Detective Chen personally escorted Maya back to Lincoln High School, where a crowd of supporters had gathered in the parking lot to welcome her home. The handcuffs were gone, replaced by the warm embraces of her mother, grandmother, and friends who had never doubted her innocence. Maya's simple black dress was wrinkled from her time in custody, but her dignity remained intact as she walked toward the school entrance with her head held high. The news of Brandon Mitchell's arrest had spread quickly through the community, shocking many who knew his family's prominent social standing. Detective Chen had found the stolen computer equipment hidden in Brandon's bedroom, along with detailed plans to sell the items online. His scheme to frame Maya had been motivated by jealousy over her academic achievements and his belief that his family's wealth entitled him to the valedictorian honor. As Maya entered the gymnasium, the entire crowd rose to their feet in a spontaneous standing ovation that lasted for several minutes. Teachers wiped away tears as they watched their most dedicated student return to claim her rightful place among her graduating classmates. The injustice she had endured only served to highlight the remarkable character and strength that had earned her the valedictorian position in the first place. Principal Davidson approached Maya with visible emotion, his voice thick with regret and admiration. "Maya, on behalf of Lincoln High School, I want to apologize for what you've endured today. You have shown grace and dignity under the most difficult circumstances, and you have made us all proud to call you a member of our school community." His words echoed through the gymnasium's sound system, reaching every person who had witnessed the earlier injustice. Mrs. Rodriguez handed Maya the valedictorian speech she had written weeks earlier, the same words that had seemed so prophetic when she read them during Maya's arrest. The paper was slightly crumpled from the day's events, but the message of perseverance and hope remained as relevant as ever. Maya unfolded the speech with trembling hands, her mind racing to process the dramatic transformation of her graduation day. Maya's mother sat in the front row of the family section, her face radiant with pride and relief. She had never doubted her daughter's innocence, but seeing Maya vindicated in such a public way filled her heart with overwhelming joy. Beside her, Rosa Washington nodded knowingly, her 8 decades of life experience having taught her that truth always finds a way to emerge, even in the darkest moments. The gymnasium fell silent as Maya approached the podium, her presence commanding respect and attention from every person in attendance. The girl who had been arrested in handcuffs just hours earlier now stood ready to deliver the speech she had earned through 4 years of hard work, dedication, and unwavering integrity. Her journey from humiliation to vindication was about to reach its most powerful moment, and everyone present sensed they were witnessing something extraordinary. Maya stood at the podium, looking out over the packed gymnasium filled with faces that had witnessed her lowest and highest moments within the span of a single day. The microphone amplified her breathing for a moment as she gathered her thoughts, transforming the speech she had prepared into something far more meaningful and urgent. The words she was about to speak would carry the weight of her recent experience and the lessons learned from injustice overcome. "Fellow graduates, families, and faculty," Maya began, her voice steady and clear, despite the emotional weight of the day's events. When I wrote this speech several weeks ago, I thought I understood what it meant to face adversity and overcome challenges. Today, I learned that understanding and experiencing are two very different things. Her opening words drew complete silence from the audience, every person hanging on her every word. Maya continued, her confidence growing with each sentence. This morning I stood before you as your valedictorian, honored to represent our graduating class. This afternoon I stood in handcuffs, falsely accused of crimes I would never commit. Tonight I stand before you again, not just as your valedictorian, but as living proof that truth will always prevail over lies, and character will always triumph over circumstances. The gymnasium remained absolutely silent as Maya spoke about the importance of not judging others based on appearance, social status, or assumptions. She thanked the teachers who had supported her, the classmates who had spoken up for her character, and the community that had rallied around her during her darkest hour. Her words carried the authority of someone who had faced injustice and emerged stronger on the other side. To my fellow graduates, Maya said, her voice rising with passion and conviction, we are entering a world that will test us in ways we cannot imagine. Some of you will face discrimination because of your race, your religion, or your economic background. Others will encounter challenges that seem impossible to overcome. But remember this day, and remember that your character is your most valuable possession, and no one can take that away from you. Maya's mother felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she listened to her daughter transform pain into purpose, using her own experience to inspire and encourage others. The girl who had been humiliated just hours earlier was now delivering one of the most powerful graduation speeches in the school's history, turning her personal vindication into a universal message of hope and resilience. As Maya concluded her remarks, she looked directly at the section where her family sat, drawing strength from their unwavering support and love. Class of 2024, we are more than our circumstances, stronger than our challenges, and capable of changing the world through our integrity, compassion, and determination. Let's make sure we never forget the lessons we've learned here, both in our classrooms and in our lives. The gymnasium erupted in thunderous applause as Maya concluded her speech, with many audience members rising to their feet in recognition of the extraordinary courage and wisdom she had demonstrated. The standing ovation continued for nearly 5 minutes, with some people wiping away tears and others simply shaking their heads in amazement at the transformation they had witnessed throughout the day. Principal Davidson returned to the podium to present Maya with her diploma, but he paused first to address the audience directly. In my 30 years in education, I have never witnessed a more powerful example of grace under pressure, dignity in the face of injustice, and the triumph of character over circumstances. Maya Washington has taught us all a lesson today about what it truly means to be a leader and a role model. As Maya received her diploma, Detective Chen stood near the back of the gymnasium, observing the scene with satisfaction and reflection. Her investigation had not only cleared an innocent young woman, but had also exposed the deeper issues of prejudice and assumption that had allowed the false accusations to gain credibility so quickly. She made mental notes about procedural improvements that could prevent similar injustices in the future. The local news crews that had arrived to cover the unusual graduation ceremony captured Maya's triumphant moment as she held her diploma high, her face beaming with the joy and relief that came from vindication earned through truth and perseverance. The images would soon be broadcast across the state, turning Maya's story into a powerful symbol of justice and resilience for people everywhere. Brandon Mitchell's parents sat in their car in the parking lot, too ashamed to face the community after their son's arrest and the revelation of his deliberate scheme to frame Maya. The Mitchell family's prominent social standing had been built on wealth and influence, but it crumbled quickly when confronted with the reality of their son's character and actions. They would spend years trying to repair the damage he had caused to their reputation. Maya's grandmother, Rosa Washington, smiled knowingly as she watched her granddaughter accept the recognition she had earned through years of hard work and sacrifice. At 82 years old, she had seen enough of life to understand that moments like these were rare and precious, when justice and truth align to create something beautiful and inspiring. She whispered a prayer of gratitude for her granddaughter's strength and character. As the formal graduation ceremony concluded, Maya was surrounded by classmates, teachers, and community members who wanted to congratulate her and express their support. Many people apologized for doubting her initially, acknowledging that they had allowed assumptions and prejudices to cloud their judgment. Maya accepted each apology with grace, using the opportunity to continue teaching about the importance of looking beyond surface appearances to see the truth of a person's character. The day that had begun with such promise, descended into nightmare, and risen to triumph, would be remembered for years to come as a powerful lesson about justice, perseverance, and the strength of the human spirit. In the weeks following her graduation vindication, Maya's story spread far beyond Lincoln High School and became a national symbol of resilience and justice. Major news networks picked up the story, and Maya found herself invited to appear on television programs where she continued to share her message about the importance of character over circumstances and truth over assumptions. Harvard University's admissions office reached out personally to congratulate Maya on her courage and to reaffirm their commitment to her full scholarship. The dean of students wrote a letter expressing the university's pride in welcoming someone who had demonstrated such remarkable integrity under pressure. Maya's story had actually strengthened her position as an incoming freshman who had proven her character in the most challenging circumstances possible. Detective Chen received commendation from the police department for her thorough investigation and her commitment to uncovering the truth despite initial evidence that seemed to support the false accusations. Her work on Maya's case became a model for other investigators, demonstrating the importance of looking beyond surface appearances and questioning assumptions when evidence doesn't align with a suspect's established character and background. Brandon Mitchell pled guilty to theft, vandalism, and filing a false police report, receiving a sentence that included community service, restitution, and mandatory counseling. His college acceptance was rescinded, and his family faced social ostracism from the community that had once celebrated their prominence. The incident served as a stark reminder that wealth and status cannot protect someone from the consequences of poor character and criminal behavior. Lincoln High School implemented new procedures for handling serious accusations against students, including mandatory character reference checks and timeline verification before involving law enforcement. Principal Davidson used Maya's case as a teaching moment for both students and staff about the dangers of rushing to judgment and the importance of due process in all situations. Maya's mother, Patricia, was promoted to a supervisory position at the hospital where she worked, partly due to the attention her daughter's story had brought to the family's work ethic and integrity. The additional income would help support Maya's college expenses and provide more stability for their household. Patricia often spoke about how proud she was of Maya's response to the crisis and how it had strengthened their already close relationship. Mrs. Rodriguez established a scholarship fund in Maya's honor for students who demonstrated academic excellence despite facing significant personal challenges. The Maya Washington Memorial Scholarship would provide financial assistance and mentorship opportunities for future graduates who embodied the same qualities of perseverance and integrity that Maya had shown throughout her high school career. The simple black dress that Maya had worn on graduation day was preserved as a reminder of her journey from humiliation to vindication. She would later donate it to a museum exhibit about civil rights and social justice, where it would serve as a tangible symbol of the ongoing struggle against prejudice and the power of truth to overcome injustice. Maya's story had transformed from a personal nightmare into a source of inspiration and hope for people across the country who faced their own battles against unfairness and discrimination. 6 months later, Maya thrived at Harvard University, where she quickly distinguished herself as a student leader and advocate for social justice. Her experience with false accusations had crystallized her determination to become a civil rights attorney, and she threw herself into her pre-law studies with renewed passion and purpose. Her professors noted her unique perspective on justice and her ability to connect legal principles with real-world experiences of discrimination and prejudice. Maya joined the Harvard Law Review's undergraduate feeder program and began writing articles about criminal justice reform and the presumption of innocence. Her personal story gave weight to her academic arguments, and her writing attracted attention from legal scholars and civil rights organizations across the country. She was invited to speak at conferences about wrongful accusations and the importance of thorough investigation in criminal cases. Back in her hometown, Lincoln High School had become something of a pilgrimage site for educators and civil rights advocates who wanted to learn about Maya's story and its impact on the school community. Principal Davidson frequently gave presentations about the lessons learned from the incident and the policy changes that had been implemented to prevent similar injustices from occurring in the future. Detective Chen was promoted to lieutenant and put in charge of training new officers on proper investigation techniques and the dangers of confirmation bias. She used Maya's case as a central example in her training seminars, emphasizing the importance of following evidence wherever it leads, rather than trying to make facts fit preconceived notions about suspects based on their appearance or background. Brandon Mitchell completed his community service and began attending a state university under a different name, hoping to rebuild his life away from the shame of his actions at Lincoln High School. His parents had quietly moved to another state, unable to face the ongoing scrutiny and judgment from their former community. The incident had taught them painful lessons about entitlement, character, and the true meaning of success and failure. Maya's grandmother, Rosa Washington, became something of a celebrity in her own right, frequently invited to speak at churches and community centers about her granddaughter's strength and the importance of raising children with strong moral foundations. Her wisdom and insight provided comfort and guidance to other families facing difficult challenges, and her faith-based perspective on justice and forgiveness resonated with audiences of all backgrounds. The hashtag number Justice for Maya continued to be used whenever similar cases of false accusations or racial profiling emerged in the news. Maya's story had become a rallying cry for people fighting against injustice and a reminder that truth and character could triumph over even the most difficult circumstances. Social media activists often referenced her graduation day vindication as proof that persistence and integrity could overcome systematic prejudice and discrimination. Maya's impact extended far beyond her personal vindication, creating ripple effects that continued to influence discussions about justice, character, and the importance of looking beyond surface appearances to understand the true measure of a person's worth and potential. As Maya's sophomore year at Harvard began, she received an unexpected phone call that would bring her story full circle. The caller was Jennifer Adams, a producer for a major television network who wanted to create a documentary about Maya's experience and its broader implications for the criminal justice system. The proposed film would examine not only Maya's individual case, but also the systematic issues that allowed false accusations to gain credibility so quickly. Maya initially hesitated about participating in the documentary, concerned about reopening painful memories and exposing her family to renewed public scrutiny. However, after discussions with her mother and grandmother, she decided that sharing her story on a larger platform could help prevent similar injustices from happening to other young people who lacked her strong support system and eventual vindication. The documentary production team spent months interviewing everyone involved in Maya's case, from Detective Chen and Principal Davidson to her former classmates and teachers. The film revealed the complex web of assumptions, prejudices, and procedural failures that had led to her arrest, while also celebrating the individuals who had stood up for truth and justice when it mattered most. Brandon Mitchell agreed to participate in the documentary as part of his ongoing efforts to make amends for his actions. His interview was painful to watch as he struggled to explain the jealousy and entitlement that had driven him to frame Maya for crimes she didn't commit. His participation provided valuable insights into the mindset that leads to such destructive behavior and the long-term consequences of allowing envy to override moral judgment. Maya's mother, Patricia, used her portion of the documentary to speak directly to other parents about the importance of teaching children to judge people by their character rather than their circumstances. Her message resonated particularly strongly with working-class families who recognized their own struggles in Maya's story and found hope in her ultimate triumph over adversity. The documentary, titled Vindication: The Maya Washington Story, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival and received widespread critical acclaim. Film critics praised its balanced approach to examining systematic injustice while celebrating individual resilience and the power of community support. The film went on to win several awards and was eventually picked up for national television broadcast. Maya used the platform provided by the documentary to announce the establishment of the Maya Washington Foundation for Criminal Justice Reform a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting young people who had been falsely accused of crimes and working to improve investigation procedures and training for law enforcement officers. The foundation's first major initiative was a partnership with police departments across the country to implement new protocols for investigating accusations against students and young people, ensuring that character references and timeline verification became standard procedure before arrests were made. Maya's transformation from victim to advocate had created lasting change that would benefit countless other young people who might otherwise face similar injustices. Her story continued to inspire people around the world who were fighting their own battles against prejudice, false accusations, and systematic unfairness. During her junior year at Harvard, Maya was selected as a Rhodes Scholar finalist, recognition that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier when she sat in handcuffs on what should have been the proudest day of her high school career. The scholarship committee was particularly impressed by her combination of academic excellence, leadership potential, and commitment to social justice reform based on her personal experiences with the criminal justice system. Maya's thesis advisor, Professor Elizabeth Morrison, often used Maya's case as an example in her constitutional law courses, demonstrating how individual experiences could illuminate larger systematic issues within the legal system. Maya's first-hand knowledge of wrongful accusation and vindication provided unique insights that enriched classroom discussions and helped other students understand the human impact of legal procedures and policies. The Maya Washington Foundation had grown significantly, with chapters established at universities across the country. Student volunteers worked with local police departments and school districts to review policies and procedures for handling accusations against young people, while also providing support and resources for students who had been falsely accused of various offenses. Detective Chen, now Lieutenant Chen, had become a nationally recognized expert on investigation procedures and bias prevention. She frequently collaborated with Maya on training seminars and policy development initiatives, their partnership representing the positive outcomes that could emerge from even the most challenging circumstances when people committed themselves to truth and justice. Maya's grandmother, Rosa Washington, celebrated her 85th birthday surrounded by family, friends, and community members who had been inspired by her wisdom and strength throughout Maya's ordeal. Her quiet dignity and unwavering faith had provided the foundation that allowed Maya to navigate her crisis with such grace and determination. At the celebration, Rosa spoke about the importance of teaching young people to stand firm in their principles, even when the whole world seemed to be against them. Lincoln High School had implemented the Maya Washington Character Education Program, a comprehensive curriculum designed to teach students about integrity, empathy, and the dangers of judging others based on appearances or circumstances. The program used Maya's story as a central case study, but also incorporated examples from history and contemporary society to help students understand the ongoing relevance of these issues. Brandon Mitchell had transferred to a small college in the Midwest, where he was majoring in social work, hoping to dedicate his life to helping young people avoid the mistakes he had made. He regularly spoke at high schools about the dangers of jealousy, entitlement, and dishonesty, using his own story as a cautionary tale about how quickly poor decisions could destroy lives and relationships. Maya's impact continued to expand as she approached her final year at Harvard, with law school applications pending and a growing reputation as one of the most promising young advocates for criminal justice reform in the country. Her journey from false accusation to national recognition had created a legacy that would influence legal education, police training, and social justice advocacy for generations to come. As Maya's senior year at Harvard began, she received news that would cap her remarkable journey of vindication and advocacy. She had been accepted to Yale Law School with a full scholarship and an offer to join their prestigious civil rights and human rights program. The acceptance letter specifically mentioned her unique perspective on criminal justice issues and her demonstrated commitment to using personal experience to create systematic change. Maya's story had become required reading in criminal justice and education programs across the country, with her graduation day vindication serving as a powerful case study in the importance of thorough investigation, the dangers of prejudicial assumptions, and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of injustice. Her speeches and writings had influenced policy changes in dozens of school districts and police departments. The documentary about Maya's experience had been nominated for an Academy Award in the Best Documentary Feature category, bringing even more attention to the issues of false accusations and systematic bias in the criminal justice system. Maya attended the awards ceremony with her mother and grandmother, their presence on the red carpet serving as a powerful symbol of how far they had come from that devastating graduation day. Detective Lieutenant Chen had been promoted again, this time to captain, and was put in charge of developing statewide training protocols for law enforcement officers dealing with cases involving young people and students. Her partnership with Maya had become a model for community police collaboration, demonstrating how shared commitment to justice could bridge divides and create positive change. Maya's mother, Patricia, had been promoted to Director of Environmental Services at the hospital where she worked, a position that allowed her to implement workplace policies that supported other single mothers, balancing work and family responsibilities. Her own journey from a struggling single parent to a hospital administrator had paralleled her daughter's rise from false accusation to national recognition. Principal Davidson had retired from Lincoln High School but continued to work as a consultant, helping other schools implement character education programs and develop policies for handling serious accusations against students. His handling of Maya's case had become a textbook example of educational leadership during crisis situations, and he was frequently invited to speak at conferences about supporting students through difficult circumstances. The simple black dress that Maya had worn on graduation day was now permanently displayed at the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. as part of an exhibit on contemporary civil rights struggles. The dress served as a tangible reminder that the fight for justice and equality continued in new forms and contexts, with young people like Maya carrying forward the legacy of those who had come before them. Brandon Mitchell had graduated from college with a degree in social work and was working at a youth center, helping at-risk teenagers develop better decision-making skills and conflict resolution abilities. His transformation from perpetrator to advocate demonstrated the possibility of redemption and the importance of taking responsibility for past actions while working to prevent others from making similar mistakes. On a crisp autumn morning 5 years after her graduation day vindication, Maya stood before the United States Supreme Court as one of the youngest attorneys ever to argue a case before the nation's highest judicial body. She was representing a group of students who had been expelled from school based on false accusations, drawing directly on her own experience to argue for stronger protections and due process rights for young people facing serious allegations. Maya's legal argument combined constitutional principles with practical insights gained from her personal journey through false accusation and vindication. The justices listened intently as she described the lasting psychological and social damage that could result from rushed judgments and inadequate investigation procedures, particularly when dealing with students whose futures hung in the balance. In the courtroom gallery sat many of the people who had supported Maya during her darkest hour and celebrated her eventual triumph. Her mother Patricia beamed with pride as she watched her daughter present her case with the same dignity and composure she had shown as a 17-year-old facing handcuffs on graduation day. Beside her, Rosa Washington, now 88, nodded approvingly at each point Maya made. Her faith in her granddaughter's character vindicated beyond her wildest dreams. Detective Captain Chen had driven down from their hometown to witness Maya's Supreme Court appearance, bringing with her a delegation of police officers who had implemented the training protocols developed through their collaboration. Maya's case had become the foundation for a new approach to law enforcement that emphasized thorough investigation and character assessment before making arrests, particularly in cases involving young people with no prior criminal history. Principal Davidson, now in his 70s, sat quietly in the back row, remembering the frightened but dignified teenager who had maintained her innocence even as handcuffs were placed around her wrists. His decision to postpone the graduation ceremony until Maya could be vindicated had been controversial at the time, but it now seemed like one of the most important stands he had taken during his long career in education. The Maya Washington Foundation had grown into a national organization with offices in 12 states, providing legal support and advocacy for young people facing false accusations, while also working to prevent such injustices through improved training and policy development. Maya's personal story had become the catalyst for systematic change that had already helped hundreds of other students avoid similar ordeals. Brandon Mitchell watched Maya's Supreme Court appearance on television from the youth center where he worked, and his own journey of redemption having been inspired by Maya's example of turning personal pain into public purpose. He often told the young people he counseled about Maya's grace and dignity during their shared crisis, using her story to illustrate the importance of character and integrity even in the most challenging circumstances. As Maya concluded her argument and stepped away from the podium, she knew that regardless of the court's eventual decision, she had used her platform to continue fighting for justice and fairness for all young people who found themselves facing the same kind of prejudicial assumptions that had nearly derailed her own promising future. 6 months later, the Supreme Court issued a unanimous decision in favor of Maya's clients, establishing new constitutional protections for students facing serious accusations in educational settings. The landmark ruling, known as Washington v. Board of Education, required schools to implement due process procedures, including character reference checks and timeline verification, before taking disciplinary action that could affect a student's future educational opportunities. Maya's victory before the Supreme Court catapulted her to national prominence as one of the country's leading civil rights attorneys. Law firms across the nation offered her lucrative positions, but Maya chose instead to establish her own practice focused exclusively on representing young people who had been falsely accused or unfairly treated by educational institutions and law enforcement agencies. The Washington law firm quickly became known for taking cases that other attorneys considered too difficult or unprofitable, particularly those involving students from disadvantaged backgrounds who lacked the resources to fight systematic injustice on their own. Maya's personal experience with false accusation gave her unique credibility with clients who had lost faith in the legal system's ability to protect their rights and futures. Maya's mother, Patricia, had been invited to speak at the National Conference of Hospital Administrators about her journey from cleaning staff to executive leadership, with her daughter's story serving as inspiration for other working parents who dreamed of better futures for their children. Patricia's speech received a standing ovation as she described the importance of maintaining faith and dignity even during the darkest moments of crisis. Rosa Washington, Maya's grandmother, had become something of a local legend in their hometown, with community leaders frequently seeking her wisdom on matters of character, faith, and perseverance. At 89 years old, she remained sharp and engaged, often saying that witnessing Maya's vindication and subsequent success had been the greatest blessing of her long life. Detective Captain Chen had been appointed to serve on a national task force examining police procedures for handling cases involving young people, with Maya's case serving as the primary example of how proper investigation techniques could prevent false arrests and protect innocent individuals from life-altering consequences. Chen's collaboration with Maya had continued over the years, representing a model of how law enforcement and civil rights advocates could work together effectively. Lincoln High School had established the Maya Washington Memorial Scholarship, providing full college funding for students who demonstrated exceptional character and resilience in the face of adversity. The first recipient was a young man who had been falsely accused of cheating, but had maintained his integrity throughout a lengthy investigation that eventually cleared his name and exposed systematic problems with the school's academic honesty procedures. Brandon Mitchell had earned his master's degree in social work and had been promoted to director of the youth center where he worked, his own transformation serving as proof that redemption was possible for those willing to take responsibility for their actions and dedicate themselves to helping others avoid similar mistakes. Maya's story had evolved from a personal nightmare into a national movement for justice and fairness that continued to inspire young people facing their own battles against prejudice and false accusations. 10 years after her graduation day vindication, Maya stood before a packed auditorium at Harvard University, delivering the commencement address to a new generation of graduates who had grown up knowing her story as a symbol of resilience and justice. Her speech drew parallels between her own experience and the ongoing struggles for civil rights and social justice that continued to challenge American society. Class of 2034, Maya began, her voice carrying the same dignity and strength that had sustained her through her darkest hour. You are graduating into a world that will test your character, challenge your beliefs, and sometimes question your very worth based on circumstances beyond your control. But remember that your character is your most valuable possession, and no one can take that away from you unless you surrender it willingly. Maya's law firm had grown into one of the most respected civil rights practices in the country, with a team of attorneys who specialized in representing young people facing false accusations, discrimination, and systematic injustice. The firm's success rate in vindicating falsely accused students had become legendary, with Maya's personal story serving as both inspiration and proof that truth could triumph over even the most challenging circumstances. The Maya Washington Foundation had expanded internationally, with chapters in 15 countries working to protect the rights of young people facing false accusations and systematic discrimination. The Foundation's training programs for law enforcement, educators, and legal professionals had been adopted by organizations worldwide, creating a global network committed to preventing the kind of injustice Maya had experienced. Maya's mother, Patricia, had been promoted to chief executive officer of the hospital where she had once worked as a cleaning lady, her remarkable career trajectory serving as inspiration for countless other single parents who refused to accept limitations placed on them by circumstance or prejudice. Patricia often spoke about how Maya's strength during their crisis had given her the confidence to pursue her own dreams and ambitions. Rosa Washington had passed away peacefully at age 92, surrounded by family and friends who had been touched by her wisdom and strength. Her funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives had been influenced by her guidance and example, with Maya delivering a eulogy that celebrated her grandmother's role in providing the moral foundation that had sustained them through their greatest challenges. Detective Chief Chen had retired after 30 years of service but continued to work as a consultant, helping police departments across the country implement the investigation protocols that had emerged from Maya's case. Her partnership with Maya had demonstrated that law enforcement and civil rights advocates could work together effectively when they shared a commitment to truth and justice above personal or institutional interests. Brandon Mitchell had married and started a family, naming his daughter Maya in honor of the young woman whose grace and dignity had inspired his own transformation from perpetrator to advocate. He continued to work with at-risk youth, using his own story as a cautionary tale, while pointing to Maya's example as proof that character and integrity could triumph over any obstacle. Maya's legacy had grown far beyond her personal vindication to become a lasting symbol of hope for anyone facing false accusations, systematic discrimination, or seemingly impossible odds. 15 years after that life-changing graduation day, Maya Washington Mitchell stood in the Rose Garden of the White House as President Sarah Chen nominated her to serve as the youngest Attorney General in United States history. The irony was not lost on anyone present that the woman who had once been arrested in handcuffs was now being chosen to lead the nation's Department of Justice, her journey from false accusation to vindication having prepared her uniquely for the challenges of ensuring equal justice under law. Maya's confirmation hearings before the Senate Judiciary Committee drew national attention, with her personal story serving as the foundation for her judicial philosophy and approach to criminal justice reform. She spoke eloquently about the importance of due process, the dangers of rushing to judgment, and the need for law enforcement procedures that protected the innocent while still pursuing justice for victims of actual crimes. The Washington family's hometown had declared Maya Washington Day as an annual celebration of character, perseverance, and the power of truth to overcome injustice. Lincoln High School had established a museum dedicated to Maya's story, with her simple black graduation dress serving as the centerpiece of an exhibit that educated visitors about the ongoing struggle for civil rights and social justice in contemporary America. Maya's law firm continued to operate under the leadership of her former associates, maintaining its commitment to representing young people facing false accusations and systematic discrimination. The firm's success had inspired the creation of similar practices across the country, creating a network of attorneys dedicated to protecting the rights of students and young people who might otherwise lack the resources to defend themselves effectively. The Maya Washington Foundation had become one of the most influential civil rights organizations in the world, with programs operating on 6 continents and training materials available in dozens of languages. The Foundation's work had prevented countless injustices and had helped create a global movement dedicated to ensuring that young people received fair treatment regardless of their race, economic status, or social background. Brandon Mitchell had become a nationally recognized expert on restorative justice and youth development, his own transformation serving as proof that redemption and positive change were possible even after serious mistakes and poor judgment. His partnership with Maya in developing programs for at-risk youth had helped thousands of young people avoid the kind of destructive choices that had once nearly ruined his own life. As Maya prepared to take the oath of office as Attorney General, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from a 17-year-old girl in handcuffs to the nation's chief law enforcement officer. Her grandmother Rosa's voice seemed to whisper in her ear, reminding her that character, integrity, and faith could overcome any obstacle, no matter how insurmountable it might appear. The girl who had been judged by her simple dress and quiet demeanor had become a woman whose character and accomplishments spoke louder than any external appearance ever could. Maya's story had become America's story, a reminder that justice, truth, and human dignity must never be sacrificed to prejudice, assumption, or the convenience of rushing to judgment based on appearances rather than facts.